Today we're going to talk about LinkedIn. I would like to make this as interactive as possible. So if you have questions, feel free to add them into the chat as we go along. If you would like to ask a question but don't want, you want to ask it anonymously, you can always just send me a direct question and I will address those as I can. I'm going to be trying to monitor the chat while I'm presenting, so we will have time at the end as well. It would be great if you feel comfortable having your camera on. I always like being able to see responses, but I also understand that that's not always the way people like to do things. So if you don't want to have your camera on, that's totally fine as well. I will ask during the session to actually to pose questions in the chat though. All right. So let's get started. So LinkedIn, right? So after today, you're going to be able to list some of the benefits of LinkedIn. So we'll briefly touch on some other social media platforms and benefits that LinkedIn has. Hopefully, you're going to be in a position where you can apply some tips. So how do you actually get the most out of your LinkedIn profile? We also want to make sure that you know kind of how do you use LinkedIn to make it the most effective that it can be. So those best practices. We're going to give you a chance to start that process of profile revision. So hopefully everyone has already created a LinkedIn profile. You can have it open and do these things as we're talking about them. So making those same edits and follow along. One thing to point out though, this is the start. So it takes time, it takes revision, it takes practice. You're going to want to look at other people's LinkedIn profiles. You're going to want to continue to kind of work on this over time. So at the end of today, it's doubtful that you're going to have that perfectly polished product, but hopefully you will be in a position where you feel like you know what it is that you need to do. And then we're going to give you a little bit of a chance to start using LinkedIn to build out your profiles. Again, LinkedIn is a tool for networking, but it's only effective if you actually use it for those purposes. So we're going to try to get you a little more comfortable with that whole process. All right, so why should scientists use LinkedIn? And again, this is the catchy title for the workshop is LinkedIn for Scientists, which makes it sound as if this is going to be very specific for scientists. I say that really because everyone should be using LinkedIn, and you all are scientists, and so we're going to frame it in your position and how you would use it with where you're at. But really, the tips that we're going to talk about today are beneficial for anyone who is using LinkedIn, for their career. So why is LinkedIn useful? So one, for a lot of people who are in the process of finishing their PhD or working on a postdoc, you're making a career transition, right? You've been in a period of training. This is a time when you've gained some expertise, where you've built some knowledge base, but how you apply that is yet to be decided. So it could be you're interested in a faculty career, it could be you're interested in industry or a not-for-profit or working for government. You all have some direction that you want to take. So you need to start establishing who you are as a professional. And LinkedIn is one of the best ways that you can do that. You want to start building your professional network. So everybody understands the importance of networking, or at least they've heard about the importance of networking. But having a strong professional network, having a group of people who know your value and the kind of things you're interested in doing is going to make it significantly easier for you to make those career transitions. So the saying that I like most about networking is that it's not who you know or what you know that matters, but who knows what you know. And LinkedIn is a great way to start helping people know what you know and know things you're interested in. It's also important because this is an extremely widely used platform by recruiters. So especially if you're interested in moving into a non-faculty kind of position, a non-academic career, there are people out there who are looking for you. Right? So 92% of recruiters use some form of social media in their recruiting process. The vast majority of them use LinkedIn as the de facto default platform. So if you tailor your profile and you have it set up to showcase the kinds of things you're interested in, and that's accessible 24/7 to somebody who is doing their job trying to find you. So again, having a profile that really highlights what you're interested in and the value you offer increases the likelihood that you're going to get an email from someone saying, hey, we think you'd be a great fit for this position. Are you interested? Okay. So having a LinkedIn profile makes you more findable. That's probably not a word. Easier to find for recruiters. It's also a great way to set up informational interviews. So one of the things that we talk about at Anschutz is how critical informational interviewing is to help you understand things you're interested in, to build out your professional connections, and put yourself in a better position for making career transitions. One of those steps in doing informational interviews is figuring out who are you going to talk to. And so LinkedIn is a great tool to help you in that process. So you can find people, you can search for job titles and see who has that job title, just to identify who's doing this work. And then making those connections on LinkedIn and sending messages is a great way to make that initial ask. You know, would you be willing to chat with me sometime about what you do? You also can check out companies and employers, right? So following pages for that, figuring out, you know, what jobs are posted using the search function will help you understand what kind of positions are available to someone in your field. Someone who's interested in moving into, you know, industry positions as an industry scientist, or moving into, you know, medical science liaison positions or science communications. So this is a great way that you can figure out what are those companies that are actually posting these positions. And then you can receive job alerts, right? So you can set this up to say, I'm looking for medical writing positions. And then you'll get a notification anytime LinkedIn has a position that's posted. So this, again, is doing work that you don't have to actively do. The platform will do all of this for you. And finally, it's the present and the future, right? Like, this is what people use. It used to be that, you know, Monster Jobs, Indeed has tried to wade into this space. There are other people that do it, but LinkedIn is the platform for professional networking. It really is one of the most effective things you can do as you're making a career transition. Quick point about some other platforms. So ResearchGate is another platform that's kind of similar to LinkedIn. We're not going to talk about that today. The thing I would say about ResearchGate is that it's very academically focused. So if you were interested in a, you know, tenure track faculty kind of career, or a postdoc position, or, you know, something really in academia, ResearchGate is wonderful because it highlights your research experience and skills, but it's very specific for that. LinkedIn spans all disciplines. And as you'll see, you know, faculty use LinkedIn, but non-faculty don't really use ResearchGate for anything. So we can talk about that. You know, if you did have specific questions about it, we can talk about that later too. Okay. So what is LinkedIn, right? So LinkedIn is really this jack of all trades. So if you think about kind of the documentation and vehicles you have right now to showcase what you're interested in and things that you do, you're probably all really familiar with a CV. Right? So this is going to be kind of your full academic professional history. It's really going to emphasize those accomplishments. It is really specific to academic environments, right? So a CV is, there's oftentimes not a lot of specific detail about what happened. It's just the outcomes that go on to that. And because of that, it goes on forever, right? So it can be a really long document. That's different than a resume. So a resume really is a brief professional summary that highlights your specific skills, not just what you did. It's not that you published that paper, that accomplishment. It's what work went into publishing that paper. For a resume to be effective, it really gets tailored to the specific position, which is different than a CV. A CV just gets longer as you stay around in the field. You just add to it, right? But for a resume, you're going to tailor it. What is this job saying they need done? What do I have to offer that matches that? Your cover letter is going to start to showcase your personality a little bit. It's going to tell you the why. Why are you interested in this position? You know, what's a little more detail to some of those stories? It's also going to highlight and emphasize some accomplishments and some skills, okay? But the great thing about LinkedIn is that it encompasses all of this. So there's a little bit of all of these documents, all of these other materials that get rolled into LinkedIn. And so when you have a strong LinkedIn profile, that's also going to help you when you start crafting these other documents. Because there's a level of consistency there. When you've identified, here's what I'm interested in doing, here's my experience and my skill set, and here's why I want to do it. So again, LinkedIn can be this for you, right? And again, it is putting online then a little bit of your cover letter, your resume, your CV, all of that material that someone can find. Okay, so ready to move into part one. So one question, how much recruiters in academia use LinkedIn? So a question about recruiters in academia, that's probably not a huge pool of people that are recruiting for faculty positions. That would happen more from, like, you know, connections of faculty, encouraging other faculty, things like that. I don't really know to what extent academia employs recruiters, with the exception of recruiting for some positions where they are trying to increase the diversity of the applicant pool, that would be a place where recruiters would potentially be doing some of that. But again, usually those are through more academic channels. So I don't know the specifics on what % of academic positions or recruiters would use. It's much more common practice in industry. Good question, though. Okay. So before you do anything, if you're going to do this in real time as we go through this, stop for a second, because we're going to make some changes here. And if you don't make this adjustment first, all of those changes you make are going to get broadcast and blasted out to everybody that's in your network right now. And we don't want to do that. So before we do anything else, we're going to turn off your profile editing notifications. And so to do this, under your profile, you go to settings and privacy, you go over to visibility of your LinkedIn activity. And then what you want to do is actually turn this off. So you don't want to notify people about changes to your educational history, your job, those kinds of things, because we're going to be adding to your profile right now. When we're done with all of this, you can go back and turn it back on, and then it will be those more significant events. So adjust this before you do other things. Otherwise, you're going to start broadcasting everything that we're going to be working on right now. And that's probably not what you want to do. Okay. So before we start making any of these real changes to the content that's on your profile, we want to talk about keywords. All right. So search engine optimization. This is how positions are looking for different, are making those matches with we need this job done, who has this skill set. So you want to start tailoring your profile so that it will stand out for those search engines that are looking for people that have specific skill sets. So if you have specific keywords on your profile, you're going to get those specific results. So identifying from those jobs, what really are the skill sets that they're looking for? What are the kinds of things that are valued in these different positions and industries? And so one of the ways to start this is by using job postings, or you can use other people's LinkedIn profiles. So we have an exercise that we recommend where you go out and you find 3 to 5 different job postings for the kind of position you're interested in. Doesn't matter where the job is, doesn't matter that you're really applying for it or not. What you're looking for is what kind of information, what kinds of specific responsibilities and skills are included in that job posting. And then you make a list of those, what was common across those. And when you can identify all of these jobs stress communication, or they stress critical thinking or self-motivation, all of those kinds of things, you can work those keywords into your job, into your LinkedIn profile, and all of a sudden it starts to be a better match for those positions. The other thing you can do when you start using LinkedIn and you see other people's profiles, when you're doing searches to find folks for informational interviewing, you can look at their profiles and figure out what kind of words do they have on there. How can you make yours more tailored to the kind of profile that they have? And then you can compare yours to either the job postings or those other profiles just by using a word cloud. All right, so to do this, just quick example. So you can download your profile in a PDF format. It'll actually show up like a little resume. Theoretically, you could use that as a resume if you have your LinkedIn profile really well constructed. The cool thing about it is that you can do this for other people too. So under the More section on someone's profile, you can just save to a PDF. So if you come across somebody's profile and you're like, this is exactly the job I want, they talked about things so well, you can download and save that PDF so that you can actually use that then to see if you're creating something equivalent. You would then use a platform like wordclouds.com or something similar there, upload the content from your profiles, the words that are in your PDF and the words that are in their PDF, and then you're actually going to compare those to see what were the words that were most common. Are you actually targeting, does your profile reflect the right keywords that show up in these job postings or show up in these other profiles? So again, this is just a way for you to start having a little bit of a verification that yes, indeed, I am setting this up so that it's highlighting the right kinds of skills and abilities. Okay. And again, we're going to move through things kind of quickly here, make some recommendations. A lot of this is work that you will do afterwards. But if you have questions about any of these things as we go into it, again, feel free to just throw those into the chat and I will address them. So once we have this idea of here are keywords that we're going to incorporate into our profiles. And again, I would recommend doing this first before you spend an awful lot of time, crafting specific headlines, summaries, experience, those things. You want to know, what are you trying to showcase? What are the kinds of things that you want to be saying? Once you have that, though, we want to use that information in a headline and in a summary. So these are the two separate sections. So the headline is just going to be that description of your position. The summary is going to be, a little more detail, a little more richness about you, and more information. The default in LinkedIn is whatever your current position is will show up as your headline. So if you're a student, if you're a PhD student in pharmacology at CU Anschutz, that's probably what your headline is. If you're a postdoctoral fellow, and that's probably what your headline is, right? Because it's just going to default to that current position, but you can edit that, right? So you see the little pencil in the corner there, that's how you edit it. So why would you want to have a headline? Some of it is because you may have a very common name. So Hannah Hathaway, who is the postdoc who worked with me to originally build this workshop for the first time, not a common name, right? So having a headline actually distinguishes her from all of those other Hannah Hathaways. So people know that she's a pharmacology PhD, right? Things that she does. So again, having that specific headline starts to separate you from other people who may have a common name. The headline is just going to be this one-line bio, and so you can start thinking about this as this is the title to your brochure or trailer. So we think about, oftentimes when I think about application materials, you can conceptualize those as the movie trailer to your career, right? So if somebody watches that 2-minute trailer, do they want to watch the full movie? This is your opportunity to highlight all of those benefits, right? So this is going to be the title to your film. So what is that that you want to present yourself as? So there's a character limit. 120 characters is actually an awful lot when it comes to a headline. So, you have room here. I'll caution you about not being overly verbose. Again, this is this place to use those keywords. If there are positions that you're interested in moving into, start working those in right from the beginning. You also get to emphasize both your expertise, but also your goals. Where are you looking to move? What do you want to be known for? You can highlight some of the accomplishments and value a little bit. So there are some ways to do this that we'll talk about, but specifically, this is going to be the who you are and what you do. So this is just this broad, high-level introduction to who you are and what you do. Now, there's a lot more to who you are than what you do, but for that purposes of a headline, this is a good combination of those two things. So some examples are physician scientists experienced in translational and clinical research. Okay, so who are you? You're a physician scientist. What do? You do translational and clinical research, right? Pretty straightforward. You can throw in here things about funding. So T32 supported postdoc or National Science Foundation funded fellow. Okay, so you can start to highlight some of those accomplishments and things that recognition you've received. You can inject a little bit of personality. So medical writer, science communicator, and Oxford comma enthusiast. This is absolutely capturing a little bit of Shauna's personality. And you'll see her profile in a second too. Postdoc investigating novel treatments for melanoma. Okay, so again, this is how someone is saying, here's where I'm at, and here's what I'm doing. There are other things that you can do with it. So for mine, you can break it up. What do I want to be known for? Well, I want to be seen as a leader, a communicator, a mentor, and a scientist. But this is also a combination of my current position. So if you want to add a little context, a little personality, but then also just add on to that your specific title right now, because sometimes that can be helpful. That's another way to accomplish this. Again, this is just to start that process of thinking about how do you actually create this headline that's going to distinguish you from other people. When we move to the summaries, now we're going to want to start adding some more context, right? This is going to be this brief introduction to how you came to be in the position you're at. It's going to add a little more detail. You want to put in some more context to what it is that you actually do. But you also want to highlight where you're going, right? So what are the kinds of things that you're interested in doing? You're going to want to emphasize some of those things that are going to show up later in your experience level, those summaries of accomplishments that you had. But this becomes your commercial, right? So this is the trailer. The headline's the title to your film. The summary is going to be that commercial trailer. If somebody reads that summary, why do they want to look at the rest of your profile? Or even better, why would they want to talk to you more about something? This is what we talk about when we put in the cover letter and the resume. What you're trying to do is to get somebody to watch the full film, which is the equivalent of the interview. Okay? So again, you want to highlight those kinds of things about why might someone want to talk to you. So you can make some choices here based partly on kind of the position that you want to have or the intended audience, but is this going to be very serious? Is it going to be that, kind of academic third person stuff? Or do you want to make it more personal? I think it can be more helpful at this point in your career if you're a student or a postdoc to really, inject some of that personality. What drives you? What motivates you? Why do you want to do? Why are you doing the work that you're doing now, and why do you want to do the work that you're going to do next? This is also a little bit easier when you don't have an awful lot of accomplishments to talk about, right? Because you're still earlier in your career. So tell them why you're doing the work that you're doing right now. You do want to think about the audience and avoid some big walls of text, right? Because people aren't going to read things forever. There's 2-3 sentences of the summary that you can expand to see more, but that's going to be something where you want to make sure that those initial sentences draw someone in, and that you don't just have a huge block of text. So breaking it up in different ways. You can start by looking at a grad school essay, thinking about your NIH bio sketch. If you have a research statement or a teaching philosophy, these are going to be places where you already have talked about what you do and things that you're interested in and why you do the work that you do. Okay, so again, this is just to start that process, but you can also spend some time reflecting on that. We have some exercises in there in some of the worksheets and supporting materials that can help you work through, why do you do the work that you do? Why are you interested in this? And then again, the summary here, it's not going to be the who and the what, but it's also going to be the how and the why. So when we talk about the how, there's a way that you do things. This is for folks at Anschutz. And if you have access to this at Boulder or CFU or your other institutions, taking the StrengthsFinder personality assessment is really helpful. StrengthsFinder is all about how you do what you do and how you do those things well. And it gives you really nice language to use when you talk about those things. I have an ability to build consensus. I'm great at generating ideas. I have an innate ability to strike up conversations with people. Those are things that are unique and personal to you. And so the StrengthsFinder personality assessment is another great resource when you're trying to build some of this out. And that last point is one of those things I don't think we reflect on enough, but think about your values. Why did you choose this specific flavor of science? What do you want to do with this? Do you want to, advance understanding of science among the public? Do you want to help kids with some disease? Why did you choose to do what you do? Add those aspects into your value. This is that opportunity for somebody to see the broader picture of who you are as this emerging professional. So an example for this, so Mark Lucera is actually Director of Global Pandemic Preparedness for the National Security Council now. He went and did from his postdoc a AAAS Science and Technology Policy Fellowship. This was his LinkedIn profile before he made that move. So he's someone, as a postdoc, this is his summary when what he wanted to do was to move into science policy and science communication as a field, right? So keeping that in mind, when you read his summary, you see all those great things that he highlights. So he's telling you a little bit about kind of his training, right? His areas of research, so infectious diseases, biodefense, but he highlights things like contributing to a team and executing projects in a timely manner. So these non-technical based things, proven track record as a young scientist, right? So he's making some claims in here about who he is. But then he also adds in things about, caring about global health, supporting professional development, advocating for STEM in the public, right? And then this invitation to, hey, I'd love to connect with people. New connections are always welcome. But this is this nice, introduction and summary of kind of who he is, what he does, ways that he does it, and why he does it, right? He's committed to advocating for better understanding of science among the public, of working in fields of infectious disease and biodefense, okay? So again, the summary can be thought of as this is this introduction to you that's going to get people to pay more attention to your profile going forward. All right, so your homework here, because we're not going to spend time in this hour workshop to do this. I'm going to make some suggestions at the end of ways that you can get some feedback from each other after today's session. But use the worksheets that are provided to actually identify some of these keywords. Once you have that, work on writing your headline and your summary. So start that process. So we have a way to get some of that started, but again, this is going to be iterative. It's going to take some time. Be patient with yourself. It's not an easy thing to do, to sit down and talk about, things that you've done well, things that you're interested in doing going forward. But the more that you can actually put thought and intentionality into these sections, the more likely it is that your profile is really going to be working, to help make those matches. All right. So we went through writing a headline and summary. So now the rest of LinkedIn, what do you do with this, right? So what is this additional information that you can put in, and how do you actually capitalize on that? So again, in their privacy settings, so one of the things that we want to do when we're done with all of this is to check your visibility settings to make sure that people are able to see your information. Okay, so you want to make sure your profile is public. It's the whole point of LinkedIn. This is one of those questions that, sometimes people will hide their profile, so when they view someone else, they can't see their stuff. That doesn't make any sense. If you click on someone's profile, one of the first things that they're going to do is figure out who you are and why are you checking out their profile. That is, if you're looking at a company, if you're looking at someone that you want to connect with, all of those kinds of things, this is a great way for them to take a look at you. Okay. So you want to make sure that under those settings that your profile viewing options, they can see your full profile, right? If you really, for some reason, don't want them to, you can set it to private profile characteristics so that unless you're connected, they won't actually be able to see that profile. I don't think that makes a whole lot of sense though, because LinkedIn is for networking, not stalking, right? The whole point of this is to build out connections. If you're checking out somebody's profile, don't hide from them. Right? The reason you're doing that is because you want to connect with them, let them see why you're a good person to be connected with. So to do this, you go back to those visibility settings. You can see this under profile and network. So viewing options, story viewing options, who can see your connections. These are all places that you can customize and tailor that. Again, setting it up so that people can see that full profile, see that full information, I think is always the better mode. But you do have that option to restrict that if you would like. The other thing that a lot of people don't do is they don't customize their LinkedIn profile or URL, sorry. So one of the reasons that you want to customize that is that it makes it easier to find. So LinkedIn tacks on this random set of numbers at the end of your name. And so one of the easiest things to do is just to strip those off. And so this will make it easier for people to find your profile when they're looking online, but it also makes it easier to include on your resume, to put on a business card, to put on your lab page if you have a unique website. All of those things will actually make it a little bit easier to work with. Plus, it demonstrates this attention to detail. So there's not a position that I can think of that doesn't put in their, in their job posting that they want someone who has attention to detail. This is a great way to showcase that. Right? You pay enough attention to things as, seemingly inconsequential enough as your LinkedIn URL that you actually go in and edit it. So ideas for this, right? It could be just first name, last name. You could be, doctor, PhD, like whatever it is that you can customize this however you want. So what are those things that are going to make you stand out or make you easy to find and remember? So to do this, you'll have an option in the upper right corner to actually just click on a button that says customize your LinkedIn URL. So it's very easy to find from your homepage. Next step is setting up that profile picture. Okay, we know that people who have profile pictures end up getting more traffic, they get more views. This is going to be used as the logo throughout the site. So both on your profile page, but then anytime you like a comment or make a comment, you like an article, you're active on the site, you're going to see your picture there. It helps to put a face to a name, but you want to keep this kind of professional as you're building out that professional identity. So these were Hannah's pictures. I'm not picking on her. I think the one on the right is great, and it could work depending on what position you're really looking for. But if you have a nice professional headshot, this is a great place to use it. If you don't, you can take one of those or have your friend take one of them. Phones today have such good quality cameras on it. There's lots of recommendations on how to take a good picture, but have something that's going to capture more about your personality and where you want to go. It could be a picture in the lab, could be a nice picture outside, doesn't matter, but keep it more professional because that's what LinkedIn really is for. The other place where you can put pictures in though are as a header photo. So this is the big rectangular box behind your picture, which is just going to be grayed out or some little design in there. But you have an opportunity to customize that. So here are just some examples. So these are all folks who are either former postdocs at CU Anschutz or current faculty here. So Paige, hers is more about her personality, right? She's bringing out a little bit of things that she finds interesting. Chelsea has more scientific stuff. So Chelsea is an assistant professor here. Shauna, who I mentioned before, she's the Oxford comma enthusiast. She's a medical writer now. So she has basically a medical writing background. But again, it's an opportunity to add in a little personality. I threw in here our Anschutz campus because I don't think people realize how pretty it is oftentimes when they drive by. And so again, these are ways that you can add a little more finish and polish to your profile. So think about, again, what kind of identity are you trying to build here? What is that, what is that area of career and profession you're interested in moving into? And then how can you actually use this to make that, profile stand out a little bit more? All right, so those are the easy ones, right? Like these other sections now, again, completing your profile. Keywords are going to be key. We want to make sure that we're putting those in throughout the whole profile. This is going to be the evidence that supports the claims you made in your headline and your summary. So we go back to Mark, right? Like he mentioned that he is a team player and he has a proven track record as a young scientist. This is where you got to back that up now, right? This is where you're going to put in the actual meat that supports the things that you said in your headline and your summary. You can use your CV to start this process. It's a great place to begin because you have all of those accomplishments listed there. But you want to do more than just list those accomplishments because we want to highlight skills. So we're going to build in specifically what did you do that led to that publication or that presentation or that collaborative project, right? So we're going to talk more specifically about the skills that were involved in this, always avoiding those big blocks of text. And whenever possible, using a bulleted list. Now, the other nice thing about this is that this is more of the format that fits in a resume. And so if you build good bullet points and things like that on your LinkedIn profile, oftentimes those will transfer when you put together that resume. So again, for the experience section, this is really where you're going to want to use your CV to start. But just include that relevant experience, right? If you have a really long CV or there are things that go on there that don't really fit with where you're trying to go, for the purposes of signal to noise and making sure the right information stands out, don't feel like you have to put every single thing onto your LinkedIn profile that was in your CV. You want to add a short little description for each position that you had. Okay, so what did you actually accomplish at that time? This is a great place where you can put in those specific bullets about here's what I did. And then mention any grants or awards that you received, right? That's great evidence of your ability. So what can this look like, right? So like in the education and training section, you put in there, who did you train with? What was the name of your project? But that's about all, because we're going to add in more details in the experience section. So you want to have more information than you just got this degree here. Now, one of the nice things you can do too is you can actually link the university to that university's page on LinkedIn. So that it'll show up with the right logo, the right branding, all of that kind of stuff. Again, so putting things in reverse chronological order is usually a little better. Hannah has it just kind of traditional chronological order, but you want to add a little bit. This is a place to add in some connections too, so putting in who did you train with, but give them some information about the title of what you worked on during that time. When it gets to experience, this is where you really have a chance to add in more information. So Hannah has a nice job here, did a nice job demonstrating some of those communication skills that are so highly valued by so many different careers. That this is a great place. What's that little summary? What's the 2-sentence summary of the project you worked on? What's that take-home message that you want people to get out of it, right? So she added a description of what the project was, and she talked about what it is specifically that she did, but then she has some of those specific skills. And again, as you looked at different positions, if it keeps coming up that people want, your ability to work with R statistical packages or immunohistochemistry, she mentioned there. Like those are things to specifically call out so that people are easily able to see, oh, these are those skills and techniques that you use. You can do more than just written descriptions. So you can upload pictures, graphical abstracts, videos, PowerPoint presentations. If you have those things that you think really showcase some of your abilities, you can add those in. You can add a media upload. So again, this is from time she worked at Georgetown, or when she was a PhD student at Georgetown. So again, the long list of skills that she has, the award that she got, a little media upload of a graphical abstract. Other work that she did was creating some content for It's Okay to Be Smart, right? So she actually has some YouTube videos that she included there. So again, this is a place where you can start showcasing more than just the things that you've done through your academic programs. The main take home though is what are those skills that you want to emphasize for the position you want to move into? This is the place to capture that, to really start showcasing, hey, you're a good fit for these positions. Publications, what do you do with that? Okay, so you add in your publications on your profile. It's going to look pretty jumbled because they just lump them all together. They'll display them in reverse chronological order, though. If you have a bunch of publications, be selective, because what happens is when someone else views your profile, they actually see each individual publication. So for them, it's going to show up individually like this. Okay, so the description you put in there about the publication, the link to the publication, other authors. So if you have a whole bunch of them, that's going to go on and on and on and on and on. And that can be, not that helpful sometimes. So you can be a little, you don't have to include all of those. Another thing that you can do is that you can make specific reference to some of those publications in those experience sections if you want to call out or highlight something specifically. So again, publications are a great thing to add in. Skills become even more important, though. So this is a place where actually selecting the skills that you want to be known for and then receiving endorsements for those becomes important. So people who have 5 or more skills get up to 17 times more profile views. Again, you can think about this from the standpoint of a recruiter or somebody who's looking for a good match or a good candidate that they want to encourage to apply for a job. Make it easy for them to see that you have the skills they're looking for. Use your keywords again. All right, so is it research? Is it something specifically in research? Is it communication? Is it presenting? What is it that those positions were really interested in? Add those in as the different skills. And then ask your lab mates, coworkers, near peers, ask folks for help identifying those and to get endorsements. Okay, if you worked with somebody on a project and they can actually say, yep, you do great Western blots. They always look great. I will endorse you for that. Okay, so you don't want to gin up, false attestments that you're good at these things, but it's okay to ask people, hey, I'm trying to build out this area of my LinkedIn profile. If you feel comfortable endorsing me for any of these skills, I'd appreciate it. Okay, you do want to make sure that there's some logical connection between the person endorsing you and what they're endorsing you for. So Hannah shared the comment of like her mom, who is, I think she is in journalism, but she endorsed her for like, immunohistochemistry. And based on her mom's profile, that endorsement doesn't often mean a lot, right? But for scientific skills, those are the kinds of things that anybody that you work with in the lab has, that kind of credibility that they can endorse you for that. And then return the favor. If somebody endorses you for something, go back and look at their profile, see what skills they mentioned. Would you attest to any of those? Yeah, they do those things well. This is a great way to build networking, because one of the things we forget about with networking is most effective when we give people reasons why they should be connected with us, right? If you're valuable to somebody else, it's easy to build a connection. They like talking with you, you have good advice, you do little things like, endorsing their skills. Those are all things that demonstrate some value you provide to other people, and that's what makes networking even more effective. So return the favor. And then if you see some that don't really fit, or you're like, I don't think that was really the right thing that person should have endorsed me for, you can just delete it. They're not going to get notification that you deleted that. If they went back and they looked at it, maybe they would see it, but I wouldn't worry about any of those kinds of things. You want to make sure that the endorsements you have really are reflective of what you're able to do, and that the people who gave those are in a position where they can speak about that. Recommendations are the next level for this, okay? And recommendations are much harder to get, and you have to actually request them. So if you were going to actually ask for a recommendation, you would have to contact someone and say, hey, would you write me a recommendation about something, okay? You want to ask them first. So a short, sweet email, hey, I'm trying to build out this position. I know I worked closely with you and that was a really positive experience. Would you be willing to write me a little recommendation about what it was like to have me as a colleague? You want to give them specific examples of the things that you are looking for. And if there are those keywords that you want to highlight, your ability to be a team player, or to drive a project forward, or to come up with new ideas, right? Those are the kinds of things that you can ask them to include. This can happen from each other, right? So if you collaborated with another student or a postdoc on a project, you can ask them to write that recommendation. If you mentored someone, you mentored an undergrad, or if you're a postdoc and you mentored a PhD student, you can ask them to write you a recommendation about what was that experience like. So this is one of those things that really speaks to the how. How do you do things? Are you a good colleague? Are you somebody who is a good team member? And trust me, this is the kind of stuff that once you start, being competitive for other positions, that's what people are trying to figure out. They believe you that you can do the science because you have publications and you've given presentations and you had a grant and you did all that. They're not questioning whether you can do the science. They're questioning whether you would be a good person to work with. Right? They can teach you additional scientific skills. You're smart. You demonstrated that by the fact that you got into graduate programs, that you got into postdoctoral training. That's not the question. The question is more about the how do you do things, and recommendations can help people see that and understand it a little more. Okay, and then with everything else, return that favor. Give it back to them. That's great. Thank you for writing that recommendation. Let me know if I could ever write one for you. So there are a lot of other sections, and you can include these or not include these if you want. If you have patents, if you have certifications, courses, those are things that are great to showcase and highlight as well. But keep your audience in mind, right? Who do you want to really see this? Who do you want this to be effective for? If you take in coursework, you don't include your full transcript for things, but if there are specifically notable courses that you take, if you want to move into a data science field and you have taken some very specific courses that help, list those. Certification, same kind of thing. If you completed some kind of certification course in project management and you want to highlight that, put that information on there. And then include things like additional languages. Those are always beneficial things. Especially science is a very global enterprise now, right? And so having those additional abilities and skills can be a very valuable asset. Speaking about courses, so for anybody who is at CU, so we have, the University of Colorado has a license with LinkedIn for LinkedIn Learning. So you can access LinkedIn Learning courses. You just sign up through the CU portal. There are a ton of different things that you can learn here. So courses on project management, business of science, research practices, writing. There's so many different things that regardless of what you're trying to learn, I'm confident there's a course or a learning path that will actually speak to that. One of the nice things about LinkedIn Learning is that if you complete a learning path, which will be a series of courses, oftentimes they'll give you a badge that'll show up on your LinkedIn profile. So you completed the learning path for project management. There's your certification that you have some understanding. Now, you're not going to be a certified project manager, you're not going to do all that kind of stuff, but it demonstrates that interest, that commitment, and that additional education that you took to prepare yourself for that kind of career. So what it looks like is, again, this is an example of critical thinking, which is something that actually, industry specifically calls out as things that they're looking for, or people who have those strong critical thinking skills. That's implied in a lot of the work that we do in science. Take a course on it, take a learning path and show that you also have completed this in addition to those other things. But if you complete that full learning path, so here they say, right, so it's going to be about 5 hours of content, it's self-paced, you take it as you want. But if you complete that path, you'll actually get a badge that talks about, yes, you actually, you understood this content and you demonstrated some proficiency with it. So again, this is another thing that you can take advantage of through LinkedIn. All right, so that's the how do you build out your profile? Okay, how do you actually get that set up so that it can become effective? The next part of that is what do you do with that, and how do you actually make some of these connections on LinkedIn? So one of the first questions is always, who do you connect with, right? And so is it only people you know? Maybe. Oftentimes I'll get requests from people who I don't know who they are. I don't know why they're connecting with me. And I have a tendency that I will accept those. Not everybody does, right? So there are questions that you can ask about making that decision. And only people in your field, absolutely not, right? Because you never know who's going to have the right kind of opportunity. So I wouldn't worry about keeping this restricted to any kind of scientific discipline. You can make those decisions, though. How comfortable do you feel accepting a request from someone who you don't know? Chances are there's no real risk or danger in that, but you may want to, pay attention. But somebody who's truly way outside, like there are alumni from my undergrad institution who will try to connect with me and their insurance salespeople, and I'm a little suspicious about why they want to connect, and so I typically haven't accepted those ones. But if it's a student who's at, an institution, I have no problem accepting those requests. When you start using this, though, that's when you want to start doing all those things you hope other people will do. So you want to personalize this. You want to tell them, why do you want to connect? So how do you know them? You found their profile because you're looking for this. Who are you? I'm currently a student here or a postdoc here. Why do you want to connect? I'm in the process of, building out my professional network. And so I'm trying to, you seem like a great person to connect with. And what should they do? You don't have to say anything there, right? Like just, I look forward to being connected. I have had situations where people have, said to me, in a request, it'd be great to connect. I see what you do. Hoping we can collaborate on something. And then, so I connect, and then I get a message because they're trying to sell me some kind of educational product. The more open and honest you give me, which is why specifically currently I'm a student who's looking to transition careers. I'm building out my network with people in the field I want to move into. I think what you do is really cool. It would be great to connect. Be open and honest and transparent about that. And then that's the question about, should you accept those from people you don't know? Well, easier if they provided some information. If they did, take a look at their profile, right? That's what happens. Somebody views your profile or sends you a message to connect. First thing you're gonna do is just check theirs out. You can always respond and say, hey, this is, thanks for reaching out. Can you tell me a little bit more about why you wanted to connect? If you really wanted to be, a little bit more, a little more scrutiny to whether you accept those requests or not. So again, those are all those decisions that you can make. The more information you provide to someone that you're trying to connect with who you don't know, the easier it will be. So how does this work? So you see somebody that you want to connect with, and you see that button that says connect, right? So you click on that, you're going to see an opportunity to add a note. And in that note, that's where you would say, dear so-and-so, or hi, so-and-so, this is who I am, this is what I'm looking to do. It'd be great to connect. And then you send that. If you add a personalized note, it is much more likely someone will accept your request. Don't expect them to reply back to you. That is one of those questions that we have had from people where someone was saying after one of these workshops, like they sent out all these things and everybody accepted their requests, but nobody replied. That's fine. Your goal here is to make those connections, right? It's not going to be the kind of thing where they're going to necessarily reply to your connection request. They'll just say, yep, which again is your goal. That's your objective. So if that happens, you're being successful. Right. So you can only send messages to people who are first-degree connections. And so this is why adding those connection requests becomes so important. Once you're connected to people, now you can send them a message that has, more space. You can explain a little bit more. You can ask for something like doing an informational interview. All of those things become easier because you can send them messages after you're connected. If you're not connected, you can do that through LinkedIn Mail, which requires a premium account. I don't think that's worth it. There are people who pay for that. Oftentimes, those are companies, those are recruiters, because they want to be able to send those direct messages without being connected. I think for someone at this stage who is a grad student or a postdoc, I don't think it adds an awful lot of, I don't think it's worth it. And you don't need it, right? Because really, if you send those personalized connection requests first, once you're connected to people, then you have that opportunity to send them messages. And so again, if you don't want to upgrade to that, you can add your email into your LinkedIn profile, and then it makes it easier for those companies to find you. All right, so now you have all these connections, right? So we're sending personalized requests, we're getting connected with people. How do you actually increase visibility? How do you help people find you? So in addition to having a well-tailored profile, there are other things that you can do. So one of the first things is that you will start to have this LinkedIn feed. And so just like everything else, this is going to share information that people in your network are posting, or commenting on, or celebrating, things like that. So that's going to show up when you log into LinkedIn. You can add to that, or you can like the content that's there. The more activity that you have on LinkedIn, the higher the search results will be. This is also a way that you can stay present in people's minds. So if you talk to somebody about a position, or you were doing an informational interview or something like that, and their content comes up, you can like something that they shared, and then all of a sudden you're relevant again. Okay? So you specifically can share articles, you can write articles, or you can do simple things like commenting on somebody's shared article, or liking their job promotion, whatever it is, right? These are easy things that you can do. People will share, excited to share this paper that we just published. or super happy to my lab mate who just got this award. You can share things like that. You can write little comments, but you also have an opportunity within LinkedIn to write op-ed pieces. If you want to share something specifically, you have some opinion you want to write about something like that, there's a platform where you can publish that. So it's not peer reviewed, obviously, right? But this is a place for you to demonstrate a little additional scholarship. I've actually talked with a faculty member here, and in the tenure and promotion process, those kinds of articles would be considered scholarship, right? This is you putting out there your original thought. So if you want to actually create some content, LinkedIn allows you to do that too. How much you do is up to you. The easiest things are simply liking the other things that people share. It doesn't take much time. You can do it once a week. You can say on Thursdays at 10 a.m., I'm going to log into LinkedIn for half an hour and just go through my feed and see who is sharing what and like that content, right? That's a way that you start to stay relevant in that process. It's also a good way to emphasize what you care about, right? We talk about these values for things and how are you connecting the work that you do with the why you do this stuff. And this is a great way to do that too. So sharing things from professional societies, liking those comments, commenting on things that you think are impactful. That's a great way to emphasize those things that you care about. And then when you follow those companies or groups, that's a great way to find things that you can then like and comment on, right? So alumni groups, scientific societies, you can follow the Postdoc Association at CDMRH, right? These are all things that you can do that will help your visibility on LinkedIn. All right, so we're coming up on the top of the hour. I was going to do this breakout exercise. We're not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to recommend that we can do this in the CDO workshop feedback group. So we have this set up. I'm going to throw this into the chat in a second, but you can log into this group. I'd encourage you to practice connecting with people in the group so you can send a personalized message. This is also a place where you can find some people who you potentially could get additional feedback for. So if you have, fellow students who are taking this workshop, work with each other to give feedback on those headlines and summaries. We have another worksheet in the Google Drive that will give you some opportunity to have a guided conversation around how do you actually review somebody's profile. So I'll send this out afterwards as well. Again, additional exercises and things that you can do after today to continue getting some feedback on these profiles. You have the structure, we have the checklist that's in the Google Drive. These are things you can go through, but really have somebody else look at your profile, get some feedback from them on how, is it painting the picture that you think that it is? One more exercise I'm going to add for folks is in the next week, find an article and share it. Put it on LinkedIn. If you're connected with people here, you could share it inside the CDO feedback group. You can just put it on LinkedIn generally, and then make a comment on somebody's article. These are things just to start getting in the practice of to actually build out your effectiveness using the platform. Okay, so I'm going to take some questions. I'll actually stop sharing at this point. And then let me throw into the chat again. So one, this is the workshop evaluation, which I would appreciate if you have any feedback for today's session. And then I will throw into the chat the feedback group where you can request to join that. And then this is an opportunity to connect with other people who are here today and heard the same kind of messages. And then, find someone who is willing and interested in giving a little feedback themselves. And go back and forth a little bit. So, okay, in the 5 minutes here that we have at the end, let's try to get some questions. So, is there a minimum number of connections we should aim for? Does the number of connections move you up in searches? So, that's an interesting question. I would say no, right? Like, don't feel like you got to meet this bar. There's not some golden number there. Your connections are going to be potential opportunities. The more people you're connected with, the more potential opportunities there will be. But don't feel like you have to try to hit some number. Once you get more than 500, they stop tracking and displaying that. I mean, they'll track it, but they don't display it. So it'll say 500 plus connections. Right? One of the nice things, anytime you go to a conference, which we will resume at some point, or even if you're at a virtual conference and you find people who are helpful, connect with them afterwards. It's a great way to continue those conversations that you start at a scientific conference. You meet, connect with students in your program, connect with postdocs in your department. There's so many ways that you can find people to connect with. And then just over the course of time, continue to build that up. But I wouldn't worry about trying to hit a specific number. Having more connections isn't going to increase the likelihood that someone would find you. That's not going to happen. What's going to happen is that it's going to increase the number of people who may share something you would be interested in, or something like that. But it's not like recruiters don't search for how many connections you have. They're going to be looking at what's displayed on your page. Okay, so what's the difference between regular LinkedIn and LinkedIn Premium? Yes. So Jane, I would say no. LinkedIn Premium is, at this stage, it's not worth the money. That's the kind of thing that you can pay for that, and it gives you some ability to send direct messages without being connected to someone. But that's about the only benefit that it provides. This is why I think a lot of employers or recruiters use LinkedIn Premium and actually pay for it, because they want to be able to send that direct message without somebody, being connected to them. But I don't think it's really worth the money. I don't think that it's necessary. And you feel free, you can unmute right now if you want to ask a question. If not, I will send out a follow-up email including these links again to the workshop feedback group, and I hope that those conversations continue. Okay, one more question here. So, LinkedIn skills quiz is beneficial to build up our profiles. So I would say yes, right? So one of the nice things about LinkedIn Learning and those skills quizzes is that somebody's verifying that you can do these things. Okay, so you can say, I have great communication skills, or I have great writing skills or presentation skills. Do I believe you? Maybe, right? But if you say those things and you pair it with some evidence that LinkedIn is objectively providing that indeed, as they've defined it, you can do these things, that adds a little bit more, evidence of your ability than just saying it. So yeah, I think that's a good question. It's definitely something that you could look into doing, and I think it would add some value. So when I look at other profiles, most people only have a few interests. They're a good number to have. Is it possible? Yeah, so it is possible to have too many. I think one of the things that you want to do is you want to step back at some point. So it's a good question, Katie. One thing you want to do is step back at some point and say, how easy is it to find the important things on my profile? And if what you see is there's so much, I have so many publications, or I have so many interests, or I follow so many groups that it's hard to see what I actually care about, you might want to pare some of those things down. What aligns with your core interests? If there are 2 or 3, 4 or 5, that's probably fine. But if you get more than that, that may be a little excessive. Again, it's going to be so individual and depend that I would say you have to look at the totality of that profile to figure out, is anything getting lost? So because we're scientists, right, I always talk about signal to noise. Sometimes having more stuff doesn't make it better because it's actually occluding some of the important stuff. And get a LinkedIn Learning from my local library. How do I link this to my actual? So LinkedIn Learning, once you access it, it will be automatically connected to your LinkedIn profile. You can't access LinkedIn Learning without having a LinkedIn profile. So however you have access to LinkedIn Learning, and that's through your library or through the university, simply by accessing it, it recognizes you with your LinkedIn profile. So it'll make those connections automatically. Okay, great questions. I appreciate the questions. If you have other questions, you can ask those in the CDO feedback group. You can send them to me directly. I hope this was helpful. I again think LinkedIn is one of the most powerful, professional social media platforms that are out there, and something that is very beneficial as you start to think about what are those next steps in your career. I hope these tips got you started on how to go. And again, the reminder, just be patient with yourself because it takes time. The more you look at other people's profiles, the more ideas you're going to get. Continue to revise. It's a living document, right? You can always change it and keep using it going forward.